so Yossi Philip said over a very nice story. He was saying how sometimes you could look at something and you just don't see it. So he said over a story about this Yerushalmi boy, 9, 10 years old, who was sitting on a bus, and he was very ehrlich. He was looking down. He didn't want to look at anything that wasn't sneistic. And then El Yid came over to him on the bus and says, Tzaddik, what's your name? I'm so impressed with you, how careful you are to watch your eyes, not to look at things that aren't proper. So this kid said, no, you don't understand. I'm not watching my eyes. This is to protect my heart. So the El Yid said, to protect your heart, what does your heart have to do with it? He said, it's so hard for my heart when I look around and I see all the old men who are standing and I have a seat.
Wow.
So that was his word. Okay. He said other nice things too, but that was the part that meant the most to me. Okay. Zok Tehillah Gemara. So I believe we finished on Erev Shabbos at Haboser Aidenu Ben Shineim. It's a perfect Gemara to start with on the Motzei Shabbos. Haboser Aidenu Ben Shineim. This is talking about the Shlov, when Klal Yisrael ate the Shlov. Soon the Torah tells us that the bus was still between their teeth, and the Magefa had already started. Uchsiv, the pasuk says a little bit earlier, At Chodesh Yomim. Means the Torah said you're not only going to have for one day, you're going to have Shlov for 30 days. So if they're going to have Shlov for 30 days, they couldn't have died the first day. So what happened? The Beinanim died right away. In other words, they didn't have pain. But Rishayim mitzdarin v'holchan at chodesh yomim. The Rishayim had severe heartburn, and they suffered terribly for a month, and only then did they finally get relief from their pain, and only then did they die. It says vayishtechu. It was spread out. That's the Pashup Shot. Amrish Lakish al tikri vayishtechu. Don't read it as vayishtechu, ela vayishchatu. They were shechted. Malamich and Eschaibu Sain Ayam Shal Yisrael Shchita. Klal Yisrael were Mechuyev Misa over their complaining and asking for the Shlov. Shatuach, it was spread. Tana Mishmei Rabbi Shua ben Karcha al Turki Shatuach ela Shachut. Don't learn Shatuach, don't read it Shatuach, read it Shachut, meaning Malamech Yared Lam Yisrael Im Hamon Davar Shaton Shchita. It teaches us that with the man also came the Shlov, and the Shlov was Mechuyev Shchita. In other words, in this word, Shatuach, the Torah is teaching us that a bird needs to be shechted. Omar Rabbi, so Rabbi said, V'chi mechana talamed, are you telling me that this parasha of the Shlov is the Mekar in Kol HaTorah Kula, that a bird needs shchita? V'loi kfar nemar v'yamter aleim ka'ofer she'er u'gechol hayam hayam oiv kanaf. So in Tehillim it says that Hashem rained on Klal Yisrael meat like earth, like a ton of meat, and like the chol hayam, like the sand of the beach, oiv kanaf, birds. So you see here clearly that this love is classified as an oif, as a bird. Vitanya, and the Brisa says, Rabbi Omer, it says, V'zavachto kasher tzivisicha, the pasuk talking to Moshe in the Midbar, saying if you want to eat meat, you should shecht it kasher tzivisicha, like I already told you about. The problem is, if you look up the Torah, you won't find any pasuk that specifically talks about the tzivui to shecht. So we learn from here that it must be that halacha l'Moshe Sinai, earlier than this pasuk, the Torah, the Rebbeinu Shalom was mitzavah Moshe on all the halachas of shchita. Malamich and Estav Moshe ala veshet v'ala kana. You see from here that Moshe got all of the details at an earlier time of the hilchas shchita, that the veshet has to be cut and the kana needs to be cut, and the al roiv echad ba'oif, that an oif needs one siman roiv of one siman cut, val roiv shnayim bebehema, and a behema needs roiv of both simanim cut. So we already know from a different pasuk about the halach of shchita. So when the Torah used the word shatoyach by Slav, clearly it wasn't teaching you the halacha of shechita. So we have to go back to the drawing board. What is the Torah trying to convey using the word shatoyach? There were layers upon layers of Slav. It was such an abundance, it was layers upon layers. Now the Gemara goes back to discuss the mon. Ksiv lechem, the mon is referred to in the Torah with the word lechem in Hashemayim. Uksiv shemen, it also refers to the mon Hashemen. It says at the time l'shat Hashemen. Uksiv dvash v'time ketzapichas b'dvash. So the mon was referred to as lechem, as shemen, and as dvash. Amar Beis Bachanina l'naorim, for youth they enjoy and it's good for them to eat lechem. L'zkenim, older people, it's good for them and they enjoy eating shemen. L'tinoikos, for the young kids, dvash. Zoktamar ksiv slav, and I'm going to need help over here. It says in the pasuk slav with a shin, shlav. The karninon slav, but we read it with a sin. So where I'm stuck and I don't have an answer is why does the Gemara assume that since it's spelled with a shin, that it's a shin? Maybe it's a sin. So why do we say ksiv slav with a shin, the Korean slav with a samach? Maybe the ksiv and the kriya are the same, slav with a sin. So I don't know the answer to that question. But the Gemara dashens as if there's a shin and as if there's a sin. So the shin is shalva. They ate it in peace. They ate this slav without any problem because they didn't ask for it. But once it came, they were entitled to enjoy it. Rishoyim, but when the Rishoyim ate it, it was like needles. It was literally like they're eating porcupine skin. That's how bad it was for them. But I still don't understand what the Gemara's ha'ara is that a ksiv slav mehechatesa b'chalal, the ksiv is with a shin. So if anybody has a thought about that,
there is a note. I don't understand what the note says. I don't mind reading it to you, but I don't understand what it means.
Could you read it, please?
It says the letter shin can be read as a shin or as a sin, which is indicated by a diacritical point over the left head of the letter. Thus, as written, the word for quail-like meat can connote shlav, but according to the Masoretic tradition, which teaches that it be read as slav, the word connotes slav.
So even though we read it as slav, but the fact that it used the letter shin or sin rather than the letter samach indicates that the Torah is trying to say a shin here as well.
Yeah.
Okay, Shkoyach, what note number is that?
29.
Shkoyach. Okay, now it makes sense.
The notes from the Steinsaltz says the word quail is written shlav with the letter shin, but we read it slav with the letter samech. What does this teach us? So Chanina says the righteous eat in peace, shalva.
Right.
Shalva is peace.
But my problem was, who said it's written shlav? Maybe it's written shlav with a sin.
Still,
the article explains, since he used a letter that could be read both ways, that's why we also look at it as if it was written with a shin.
And thorns are silken.
Yeah. Okay, perfect.
So I didn't say much. Okay.
So it to the Rishonim literally tasted like they were eating porcupine. Amar Rav Chanan by Rava. Dalad mini slofing. There's actually 4 types of this species of sloth. By the way, sichli, kibli, pesyuni, and sloth. The best of the bunch are sichli. Grid the lowest grade meat of the bunch is sloth. V'hava kitziporta. It's like a bird. And the article says an interesting thing that the word tziporta, the word bird, is tzipora because it also means tzafra, morning. Because in the mornings is when the birds chirp. And that's where the word tzipora comes from. So it's like a bird, they put it into an oven, and the bingi that it's so fatty, it blows up and expands in the oven. V'tafach, v'avamala tanura, it fills up the whole oven. And if you take it out of the oven and you put it on bread, even if you pile up 13 pitas, for instance, 13 loaves of bread, one on top of the other, and you put this on top of the top one, the entire pile of bread will become so saturated with fat that even the bottom one is going to be so saturated with fat that you couldn't eat it El Yalidei Teruvas only by mixing it with something. So clearly it was very fatty and it wasn't so good. And because of that, even 13 layers of bread would get totally saturated with fat. Rabbi Yehuda, now the Gemara is talking about stories how the Rebbeinu Shalom gave food to these Heilige Tanoim, b'derech neis, I guess. Rabbi Yehuda Mishtaka Chalei Beidani, he would find birds amongst his barrels. He would just find birds that he would be able to eat. Rabbi Chisda, who was both the Rebbe and the father-in-law of Rava, Mishtaka Chalei Beitzivi, he would find it in his wood storage shed. And Rava, who was the Talmud as well as the son-in-law of Rabbi Chisda, every day his sharecropper, I guess he owned property and he had a sharecropper working on this property, and every day the sharecropper bought him these birds. One day his sharecropper did not bring him the bread. Amar Maihai, he says, this nay stopped. Solak Ligri, he went up to the roof, and Shamali Yanuka, he heard a child, and often when children say things, it's like Ruach HaKodesh, it's like a Nevuah. The Kamer, what were they saying? Shemati Vatirgas Bitni. I hear this, and it's causing me so much angst that my stomach is getting shooken up. Omar, Rava said, Shmamina noch nafshid Rab Chisda. Must be that my shver died. Uvadil Rabba achol talmida. And I was only zoichet to have these birds in the schus of my Rebbe. And now that he died, I'm not zoichet to it anymore. A lot of people, it happened to be in a shver too. As long as my shver was alive, he supported me. Now that he's not alive anymore, I'm on my own. Ksivit says, Vatal Shichvas Atal, which would indicate that there was a Shichvas Atal, which was a base, I think it means it was like a base of Tal that the mun was on. Ksivit Atal, which would indicate that there was another layer of Tal on top of the mun. In fact, it was enveloped in Tal. It looked like it was packaged like a delicious Uber Eats package. That's how it came so nice. As if you ordered it from Uber Eats. Dak mechuspas. The pasuk says that the man was dak mechuspas. Omer Ishlakish. Mechuspas is a contraction of three words. It's davar shenemuach al pisas hayad. It was so tender that it would melt in your hands. So I think we all remember, M&Ms. They melt in your mouth, not in your hands. Does everybody remember those? Or am I dating myself?
Smarties.
Oh, Smarties? It wasn't M&Ms? We had a machloikas today in Shir, if it was M&Ms or Smarties. So you sure it was Smarties?
M&Ms. I'm not sure.
No, yes, you're right. It's M&Ms.
M&Ms. So these
Smarties definitely melted in your hands. That was the nafkamina.
What? Oh, Smarties melted in your hands?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Does everybody remember 4 big fingers? They taste great. What was that?
Kit Kat?
Kit Kat.
That's Kit Kat. That's
Kit
right.
Kat.
Oh, Styler remembers. Okay, gewaltig.
What is Kit Kat? No, I'm like Jeopardy. Like we're on Jeopardy.
What is it? Oh. Okay. So Dover Shinimuch Al Pisa Yad, this mun dissolved in your hand. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, it's Dover Shanivla b'Masayim b'Arboim u'Shmoinei Varim. It got fully absorbed in the 248 Varim of the person. In other words, we didn't need to go to the bathroom. And where do you get 248? Because mechuspas without the vav is 248. Because samach and samach is 16, 60 is 120. Pei is 80, 120 and 80 is 200. Mem is 40, that's 240. And 8 is 248. But Frank Kamar, mechuspas with a vav, tu b'have. It's not 248, it's 248 plus 6. If you look at the pasuk, although it's pronounced mechuspas as if there was a vav, but it's actually spelled without the vav. Tonu Rabbanan, lechem abirim ochalish. Doesn't tell him that lechem abirim is what the man ate. So we learn it's referring to the mon, and we say lechem shemalachai asharis oichlenoisai. We ate the bread that malachim eat. Divi Rabbi Kiva. This is what Rabbi Kiva said. When these words were told to Rabbi Shmuel, Amr lahem, he told them, Tzu v'amru loy Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Shmuel said, go tell Akiva to Esau, you made a mistake, Akiva. V'chi malachi asharos oichlum lechem. How could you say this is the lechem of a malach? A malach doesn't eat. But like for Nemar, when Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Shemayim, when in Rome do as the Romans, when in Shemayim do as the malachim, lechem lo yachalti, mayim lo shasizi. So you can't say it's the lechem of the malach. Elamani mikayim abirim, it's lechem shenivla b'masayim v'arboim u'shmoyne evorim. It's the lechem that gets fully absorbed into your body. You don't need a bathroom. Elamani mikayim v'yesatiyah l'chal azenecha. We know there's a pasuk that says that you have to have a shovel to be able to dig to bury the refuse that comes out of your body. Why in the world do they need that if in fact the mun, which was their diet, was totally absorbed into their body? So tomorrow, very simple. They had street meat and they had ice cream trucks and they had many vendors. There's a nation of millions of people out there in the desert. You can bet that licensed or unlicensed, they all came out in their trucks selling the street meat and selling the ice cream or whatever was popular then. Why did they have to go to the bathroom? Because of all of the other things that they ate that was not mun. Rabbi Lezer ben Prata Eimer, never mind. The mun was such a powerful stomach probiotic that after Vorim should trigger Umas Ha'olam, Moichin Lahen, mun mafigan. Even the extra food that they bought that was not mun, the mun was so good in their stomachs that it actually helped to dissolve, like it was like an enzyme. It helped to completely dissolve even the other food that they ate so that they wouldn't have to go to the bathroom. So if that's the case, so why do they need that shovel for if they never have to go to the bathroom? So after they did Averis, Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu told him, Ani Amarti, originally I said that Yiyu Kamalachi Asharis. You'd be like Malachim, you wouldn't have to go to the bathroom. Achshav, but now Ani Amatriach Oisam Sholosh Parsois. Now to go to the bathroom, you would have to travel 3 parsois to get out of the Machne Yisrael. The question is, why wouldn't you escape at the closest exit? Why would you travel Shlosh parsois? Zok the Gemara. That was the area that was taken up by the Machana. I surveyed that area. It was actually 3 parsois, so I know that the Machana of Klal Yisrael took up 3 parsois. The Tana we learned, when you go to the washroom and you're in the Machana, you can't go in the Machana. And if you don't go to the bathroom in front of the Machana or on the side, and the answer is simple, because the Machana might move forward, it might move to the right, it might move to the left. And the last thing you want is everyone to have to stomp over the little gift that you left on the ground. We have enough trouble walking down the street over here, avoiding the dogs whose owners didn't clean up after them. So you never can go there. So where do you go? El Lacharein. You can only go in the back of the Machana because we assume that when the Onan goes, it'll either move forward to the right or to the left, but the Onan won't go backwards. So now, if you live all the way at the front of the Machana and you needed to go to the washroom, you have to walk all the way to the back of the Machana and leave through the back. We know the Machana was 3 parsois, so that's how it would trouble you. So this is very, very, very interesting because we know anybody who has ever driven long distance to New York, we have to schlep along whatever food we want, and we go into the rest areas and we're uncomfortable with our bag of food and we put it there in the restaurant on the table, and all the goyim are looking at you, and they don't schlep anything. They go up to the counter, they buy their whatever they want, they have food, whatever they want. And we have to schlep everything wherever we go. And then what happens if you drink too much and you got to go really bad, and as you're driving down the thruway, you pass by a rest area on the other side, and on your side, they always have a sign because they know if you see there, you want to go, and they have a sign, next rest area, 35 miles. And the problem is you already needed to go to the bathroom 35 miles behind you, and now you're in big trouble. And you know how it's like, you finally pull up the rest area, you can barely walk to get into the bathroom. But if you had them on, you didn't have that problem. Because first of all, you had food wherever you went. And second of all, you didn't have to go to the bathroom. This is a traveler's dream. That's how it was in those days. And they were traveling a lot in those days. So it worked out pretty convenient. The Ata, Nafshenu Yevesha, in Koil. Now, with the Mon, we're dried out. It's going to be bad news. What was the bad news they were worried about? They said, our whole intestines are going to blow up. We're putting in and we're not taking out. Is there a child, a human, that takes in and doesn't excrete? There's no such thing. We're going to explode. Interesting that it uses the word Yulud Isha rather than Klum Yesh Ada. What's up? It's Yulud Isha. So the Mepharshim say very simple. A person only starts to digest and excrete after he's born. A fetus doesn't do that. So that's why, is there a Yulud Isha? Is there a child that's already born that's Maknas Vein Moitze? When these words were told to Rabbi Shmuel, Amar Lahem, he said, Al Tikri Abirim Ela Evarim Dover Shenivla B'Masayim V'Arbayim U'Shmoyne Evarim. And he said, Lamani Mekayim V'Yosai Tia L'Chalasei Necha. What did they have to bury? V'Dvarim Shaboyin Lahem B'Din Sayam. If they ordered an Amazon package with food in it, that arrived, when they arrived and they ate it, that's what they needed to go to the washroom for. Dover Acher. There's another shot in what this means. Lechem abirim ochalish. What does that mean? The man ate lechem abirim. Who is this man who ate the mun that was lechem abirim? Zok to Gemara, and here I need help as well. Ze Yeshua. This is referring to Yeshua. Sheyared loymon keneged kol Yisrael. He got as much mun, enough to feed all of Klal Yisrael. Let's see Rashi. Sha'ala im Moshe at Chumei Ahar. Yeshua waited right by the foot of the mountain for Moshe. He knew Moshe Rabbeinu was not coming back for 40 days. So why did he sit there for 40 days? He could have went home, and if he was concerned, he could have come back after 35 days, just in case Moshe would come home early. But no, he was there all 40 days. So Reb Chaim Brims once told me, why would he do that? The Teretz is, well, Yeshua was a chusid. And the chusid, even though he can't see the Rebbe, he wants to be as close to the Rebbe as possible. Shenema v'yaka Moshe v'Yeshua misharsei v'yal Moshe al Sinai v'himtim lo Yeshua sham kol mem yoim. Yeshua waited for Moshe Rabbeinu at the foot of the mountain all 40 days. Shenema v'yishma Yeshua's kol am bara. Means he wasn't there. Lamadus le'hayim moyim, but the Egel he was not with them. V'shama yored le'mon keneged kol Yisrael. There he had mon keneged kol Yisrael. So I think to myself, why is that a nace? I mean, it's a nace, but why was it necessary? He could only eat for one person. So for what purpose did the Rebbeinu Shalom send him as much mon? They literally drowned him in mon. The Rebbeinu Shalom sent him enough mon for millions of people, and he was only one person. I don't understand what the purpose is. The only thing I can think of, and if anybody has an idea, I'd rather hear it, is that maybe Yeshua was trying to get them to come join him. And since they're trying to get him to come join him, he wanted to make sure he has food for them. They should have schlepped their food along. But someone told me he saw in the art scroll, in the Hebrew art scroll, that it wasn't real mon, it was ruchnistic mon. Again, I don't know what that means.
This is Sfas Emes, it says.
That what?
Sfas Emes, who understands the Gemara to be saying that Yeshua received his own portion of physical manna while apart from the people, and that this unusual event occurred because his merit equaled that of all of Israel. Okay, wait, that's not the same thing. Earlier. When Moshe ascended Har Sinai to receive the Torah, his disciple Yeshua accompanied him to the foot of the mountain. Yeshua camped for the entire 40 days that Moshe remained on top of the mountain. From the commonality of the word Ish in 2 verses, the Bryce understands that Yeshua was the man, the Ish, who ate all of the Abirim bread. This teaches that metaphysically speaking, a form of manna came at that time to Yeshua, an equal amount to that fell for all of Israelites. Yeshua merited this because he attained the level of spirituality equal to that of the entire Jewish nation.
But it doesn't say why he needed so much money.
Doesn't sound like it was a need. It was a gift, a metaphysical gift.
Okay.
It wasn't physical. He didn't get the mind for the whole nation. It was something like like you said, it was a gift, a metaphysical.
A form of mind.
The mind was used as an illusion.
Okay. Shkoich. So Zok Gemara, how do you know this is Yeshua? It says ish achal ish lechem apir, lechem achal ish. And Ish means Yeshua. How do you know Ish means Yeshua? It says in this week's parsha, in Parshas Pinchas, Kach lechos Yeshua benun Ish asher ruach boy. So he's an Ish. So we say the Ish there is referring to the Ish referred to here in Pinchas. Moshe was also referred to as an Ish. Ichsev Ish Moshe Anav Moed. I'm sorry. 1 second. I got into a little trouble with the tomorrow's share. Okay, but Ish Moshe Anav Moed. So tomorrow, done in Ish Meish. If you want to know what Ish means by the Mon, we learn it from an exact word of Ish, which is how Yeshua is referred to. Veinan Ish Meveh Ish, and you won't say that the Ish by Mon is referring to the Veha Ish, referring to Moshe. Let's think, when we plant crops and we grow them, we harvest them once a year. So it's normal for us to store a year's worth of food. So why didn't Hashem do the same thing with the man that way? Man would fall once a year and they would have food for the year. Amr lahem. So he told them, Em sholachem mashal. I'm going to give you a mashal lama davar daim. To what you can compare this to. Lamelech basav adam sheyesh lo ben echad. He had a son. Pasuk leim is a noisa pamachas b'shana. He would give him his koil check once a year. He wouldn't ever come visit his father. He came when he needed money. So the father said, I want to see my son more often. So you know what I'm going to do? He gave him enough money for every day. And now every day he came to visit his father. Af Yisrael, so to Klal Yisrael. If he had 4 or 5 sons or children, he would be very worried. Maybe I won't have mon tomorrow. And all my children are going to die. So because of that, so come to us, everybody all the time was focused on davening and relying on their Rebbeinu Shalom. So I'm a little bit puzzled. For 40 years, day in, day out, they got mon. So why would you be worried that mon wasn't coming tomorrow? But I answered that kasha very simply. Because for 54 years, the Rebbeinu Shalom gave me food every single day. And yet sometimes I don't sleep at night. I'm worried about the future. So I realized that even though the month came every day, people were still worrying. It's a Musa Haskell that we have to realize. Hashem probably bangs his head on the wall and he says, I don't understand. I've given you everything you needed for 54 years. What still do I have to do to prove it to you that I'm going to take care of you? So the Rebbeinu Shalom takes care of us. Davar acher. What do you want? Let me ask you a question. Would you like me to give you a year's supply of bagels and then you'll have it a whole year and pull it out of the freezer? Or would you love me to deliver to you a fresh, hot, freshly baked geschmacka bagel every morning? How about you want freshly baked bread? And because of that, Hashem gave it to them every day. Davar acher, another pshat, is b'pnei masri yaderech. Like we discussed, when we travel on the thruway, we have to schlep food because you can't buy kosher food. Hashem said, no, you don't need kosher food. Wherever you stop at any rest area, I'll have a human right over there. You don't have to worry about it. And you don't even need to use the bathroom. So what more could you ask for? So Malcolm Levine told me that the ArtScroll brings down from the Ben Yoda, that's all marum is in the word lechem. The lamed stands for lave, meaning our hearts have to always be focused on the Rebbeinu Shalom so that it should give us lechem the next day. Ches stands for cham. Hashem wanted us to have warm bread every day. And the mem stands for masoi. That Hashem didn't want us to have to carry the food, so he delivered it to us as we need it. Reb Tarfon and Rabbi Shmuel and the Zekanim were discussing the parsha of the month. Rabbi Lezer Madoi was sitting amongst them, and he had a very interesting comment. And then Rabbi Lezer Madoi Bamar, Mon Shiyard Lan Yisrael, the mon that fell down was 60 amas high. There's a shaila if it means that there was a pile 60 amas high, or if it was floated down, it was visible up 60 amas high, so it was visible from far away. Amalei Reb Tarfon said, my doi, Until when are you going to make up this unproven, unverifiable information? Amr Loi. Rabbi Elazar ben Doy answered back, Rabbi, I'm not making this up. Mikra Nedarish. I have a pasuk that says this. And it says by the Teva that the water level by the Mabel was so high, was Chamas Eshrei Amma Milamaila Gover Amayim V'Yichasu Ar. It was the depth of the water was 50 amas, and therefore it covered over the mountains. In fact, the Gemara, how does this make sense? V'chi Chamas Eshrei Amma Be'emek, Chamas Eshrei Beharim. Could you say that there was an exactly 15 amas of water that covered all the terrain and all of the contours of the terrain with the same coverage? V'chimaya shuri kami? Is water like a carpet that will maintain the contours? Of course not. It ends up going and it equalizes. So how does this work? The other question is, even if you want to say there was some nace and the water did cover the contours of the terrain, how would a teva flow uphill? Ella, what you must learn is Nivku kol mayanes time rabba ad ashru maya badeturi. First, the time opened up until the water level reached the top of the mountain. So now everything is exactly covered. And after that, and then an additional 15 amas came, and it was the water level was 15 amas higher than the highest mountain peak. Now, the Mabel, this occurring by the Mabel was a peronius. It was a punishment to Mabel. What's greater, the midah taiva or midah peronius? Havayim midah taiva, midah peronius. We know that the midah taiva was always greater than the midah peronius. Now Rashi tells us that how do you know that the midas peronius is less or the midas taiva is more? So Rashi quotes a pasuk. It says, Noiter chesed la'alofim. Chesed, midas tova, Hashem says for 2,000 years. And by midas peronius, Rashi says, al shileshim al ribeim. So the Rebbeinu Shalom will punish up to 4 generations. So if for a midah ra punishment, Hashem punishes up to 4 generations. And for midah tova, Hashem rewards up to 2,000 generations. It's a 1 to 500 ratio. So midas tova is 500 times greater than midas peronius. Over here, the Gemara is not going to use that ratio. So vice the chayis, the Gemara holds that not in every case is the ratio 1 to 500, because Rabbi Elazar Medoy here is going to illustrate a different ratio. But the general rule is for sure that midah tova is greater than midas peronius. So let's have a look. The midas peronius, by the Mabel, what does it say? How much water was there? 50 amas. What was supplying the water? Through which conduit was the water flowing? It says, there were plural. There are 2 windows that open. 2 windows open in the Shemayim to allow 15 amas of water to escape. The dalsei Shemayim posach, and the doors, not the windows, but the doors opened. The yamter aleim mon lecho udagan Shemayim nosan lomoy. So we see the mon came out of 2 doors. The Mabel came out of 2 windows, but the mon came out of 2 doors. What is the ratio in size of window to door? Zok to Gemara, and I don't know how the Gemara knows this, but kama arubois yesh bedelos. How many windows are there at each door? Arba, 4 windows per door, which means 2 doors, harekan shmoina, 8, which means if there's 2 windows for the Mabel and 8 windows for the mon, it's a 1 to 4 ratio. So if there were 15 amas of water from the 2 windows, 15 times 4 is 60. Nimtza mon shiyard on Yisrael gavaya shisha mama. That's where I got it from. So Rabbi Elazar Rodoi told the Reb Tarfon, I don't understand why you're jumping on me that I have unverified information. It's so simple and obvious that it's 60 times. I mean, how did you even think otherwise? It's so obvious. It's jumped right out at you. Zot the Gemara, Tanya Isi ben Yehuda Omer, Mon Shiyard Lam Yisrael, It went up so high that it was able to be seen from very far away. All of the kings from east and west saw this tremendous nace of love that the Rebbeinu Shalom was showering on Klal Yisrael. Shenemar Tarech Lefonai Shulchan. We just said this in Shalashur this time. Tarech Lefonai Shulchan Neged Tzayrai. We say this in Mizmor David Hashem Roy Yachzor. Hashem gave me food. Neged Tzayrai, opposite, in front of all of my enemies. So all of my enemies and my tormentors saw the love that the Rebbeinu Shalom was giving to us. Now, once we're discussing this kapitel in Tehillim, let's look at the next words. Kaisi Rivaya. So, what does this mean, Kaisi Rivaya? Amar Abaye Shema Mino Kasa de David La Alma de Asi. The Kais of David HaMelech La Asad Lavai is going to be how big? Ma'asin ve'esrin v'chad 221 luga machzik. It's going to be able to contain 221 lug. Shenemar Kaisi Rivaya. It says in the pasuk, Kaisi will be Rivaya. Rivaya bigamatria hachiyava. Rivaya is 221 because Reish is 200, Yod is 10, that's 210, and then 6 and 5, Vav and A is 11, that's 221. Frek the Gemara, Rabbi Lezer Hamadoi, you wanted to claim that the reason we know that there was a 60 amma high pile of mon was because it's 4 times the amount of height of the water. Zokmar haladamya. That's not a raya, because Hasan bar Ban Yoimin, sure, it was only 2 windows, but it had 40 days to flood. But Haka Chadashaita, here the mon fell out of 2 doors, but it fell in 5 minutes. So how could you say that it's exactly a 1-to-4 ratio if you have 2 windows open for 40 days, and for all you know, it puts out even more than what 2 doors put out in a couple of minutes? That's on one side. On the flip side, Hasam L'chula Alma, when Hashem was flooding the world, the whole world was being flooded. That water, you need a lot more water to flood the whole world. Hachal Yisrael. Here, it only fell in a very small, limited area. Luchadei, v'nafesh lutzvei. Maybe, in fact, the pile was way higher than 60 amas, because you're concentrating all of that shefa in the little area. Zokt Gemara, Rabbi Lazar Amadoi wasn't figuring this out from cheshbonius, because in fact these kashas are good kashas. Rather, Rabbi Lazar Amadoi, psicha gomer. He learned the Gzera Shava from Pesach to Pesach, where it says it by the mon, and where it says it by a mabel, and through Gzera Shava he learns that it's 4 times. But it's nothing because of the cheshbon, because in fact the cheshbon could be challenged. Okay, now we're getting back to the Hilchos of Yom Kippur. The Mishnah taught us that on Yom Kippur, one of the Inuyim was Asher B'Achila. Let's just remind ourselves how many Inuyim there are. There's Achila, there's Shtia, there's Rechitza and Sicha, there's Ne'ilas HaSandal and Tas B'Shamita. So that's a total of 6 Inuyim. Zok Gemara, Hani Chamisha Inuyim, these 5 Inuyim, which is interesting because we just counted 6, but these 5 Inuyim connected me. Where do you see them arumas in the Torah? There's 5 times where the Torah mentions Inui in reference to Yom Kippur. And they're listed in these 5 psukim. So all of these are psukim that mention Inui in reference to Yom Kippur. You listed off 5 psukim. But we learned that there were 6 Inuim, like we just listed off. So Gemara, there is no special Inui to tell us that Shtia, drinking, is also in Yom Kippur, because drinking is included in the prohibition of eating. Where do you see that the prohibition of eating also prohibits drinking? Rish Lakish said, how do you know that drinking is considered achila and it would be prohibited by a prohibition for achila? You will eat lashon achila your tirash. What is tirash? Tirash chamerhu. Tirash is wine. So you see the Torah uses the word v'achalta to describe the consumption of tirash. So you see, for drinks, you can use the word achila. You don't see anything from there. The dilma the achlay de nigra. Maybe when the Torah is talking about eating tirosh, it means you're mixing it in to a food that's going to be a food. That's a solid that you eat. So you could use the word achila for wine, even though you're not drinking it, but you're eating it as an ingredient in food. A nigrin ma'id. A nigrin is a dish that's made with water that beets have soaked it. I'm not sure if silka are beets. Are trading beets, or is it
Beets. Beet juice.
beet juice? Okay, beetle juice. Okay, and achsigroin is maya the chulashalki, is water that any vegetables have soaked in. So you mix wine into that, so that's called achila. But where do you see that it's called achila, even if it's a pure drink? From a different puzzle. It talks about Ma'aseh Sheni, even the Sata Kesef, you can buy whatever you want. B'bakar u'b'tzoyin, b'yayin u'b'sheicher, and sheicher shtiyahu. Sheicher is considered shtiya. V'kaya rachmana v'yachalta, and the Torah used the word v'yachalta. Frek the Gemara mimai, who says that you're eating this sheicher, which is liquid? Maybe the sheikher, this beer that we're talking about, is also beer that got mixed into a recipe. Zakti Gemara, sheikher kosaf. The word sheikher indicates, connotates that it makes you drunk. Midi the meshaker, something that makes you drink, that makes you drunk. And Rashi tells us that the ain sheikher is derech achila. If you eat marijuana brownies, you don't get drunk. You only get drunk if you drink something intoxicating. But could be marijuana is different. In fact, the Gemara, maybe what the sheikher means is the vela keilas. It's a pressed figs from the city of Keilas, which was intoxicating. The Tanya, achal the vela keilas. If you ate the vela keilas and you're a kohen, v'shasa dvash, or you drank honey, or b'chalav or milk, v'nichnas l'mikdash, and you went to the Beis Hamikdash. This is not after Kohen. Anybody, you're not allowed to go into the Beis Hamikdash when you're under the influence. The halacha is chayiv. You're chayiv. So just as an aside, I never knew that you could get drunk for milk, but vice the you can get drunk for milk. So Zakta Gemara, once again, we don't know for sure that the word achila is appropriate to be used for a drink. So Gemara Elayav Shecher min Nazir. It says Shecher in the pasuk referring to achila, which is this the Shecher, and the Torah says V'chalta in that pasuk. And how do we know that Shecher in this pasuk means a drink? We didn't have any raya now, but now we have a raya. Until now we didn't, but now we have a raya because we have a limit of shecher from Nazir. You learn Xer Shava. Mala halan yayin, by the word shecher that's used by a Nazir for sure means wine. Afkan yayin. So too here in this pasuk where it used the word v'achalta referring to shecher, clearly it means yayin. So you see that the word achila is used to describe drinking as well, and therefore, even though you don't have 6 inuyim, only have 5 inuyim, eating and drinking is under the same category. Now the Gemara on Amar Aleph made an assumption that tirosh means wine and not grapes. Freit the Gemara, who said that's a good assumption? For tirosh chamru, is tirosh wine? Vatanya, we learned, hanoider minat tirosh, if someone said, I will not eat tirosh, also b'chol min mesika, it's also from to use any type of fruit juices, unfermented, but if it's fermented, it will not be classified as tirosh, and he could drink it. So you clearly see that something fermented is not tirosh. So clearly wine cannot be tirosh, because wine is fermented. Frek the Gemara, were you proving to me that tirosh is not wine? I'll prove you the opposite. V'lav chamru, you want to argue that tirosh is not wine? V'aksiv v'tirosh yinoivev besulas. Tirosh wine will open up something sealed up like a basula, like a virgin, something that's sealed up. What does that mean? It makes your lips loose. Even if you have a dark, deep secret, enough wine will let it flow out, will open it up. So you see, tirish means wine. So no, maybe tirish means grapes. And what the pasuk is saying, davar haba min tirish, wine, which is extracted from grapes, that you know v'sulas. The wine of your wine pits will flow, will break open. Now the yekev is the pit that catches, it's the receptacle that catches the wine after it's pressed. When they press the wine, it's on a perforated surface, and the wine runs through the perforated surface into this bar. So clearly, if it's tirish from a bar, it's got to be wine. So I have proof that tirish means wine. So I can say the same, I can deflect it the same way. Davar abomin tirish, the wine that comes out of the grapes, from the yekev, Yifraitu should break open. So you see, you don't have a raya yet that tirish means wine, maybe it means grapes. In fact, the more vaksiv znus the yayin the tirish yikach leiv. Znus wine tirish will take your heart, meaning it'll make you drunk. It'll take away your heart. It'll take away your clear thought. So you clearly see that tirish must mean wine. It must be that tirish means wine, and that's why the Gemara made the assumption that tirish means wine.
I don't see that at all. The fact that it says yayin and tirish, it must mean two different things. It can't be wine.
Tirish would be a stronger type of wine, but tirish can't mean a grape because you don't lose your mind, you don't lose your clarity of mind when you eat a grape. So it might not be fresh wine, it might be older wine. But the problem is, if tirish means wine, well then let's go back to the case of the person who made a nether. It says, I know that tirish could drink wine. If tirish means wine, how could you possibly be allowed to drink wine if you're noider from tirish? So on that the Gemara says, Nidarim, you don't look at the actual Webster's definition. You look at the way the word is used, which actually I should take back what I said, because Webster's often modifies the meaning based on how things are used. The Webster's updates their dictionary based on how people use words. So even though tirish in the Torah might mean wine, but when a person makes a neder, you don't follow the definition in the Torah, rather you follow the definition of how people normally use that word. And since when people normally use the word tirish, they are not referring to an intoxicating beverage, they're not referring to an alcoholic beverage. Therefore, when you say, I want to make a neder from tirish, we say it does not include wine. But technically, when the Torah uses the word tirish, it does mean wine, it means an alcoholic beverage. Frankly, Gemara, where do you get these words from? V'may kar le'yayin, v'may kar le'tirish. Where do these words originate from? So yayin shemevi yalala l'olam. Yayin brings the cry of pain, because wine leads to averis, and averis leads to pain, and therefore it's called yayin. So how does the word yayin have anything to do with the word yalala? So Rashi says, al yidei yayin, through wine, rov haniyuf, there'll be znus, u'puranis pala'ilam, and then Rashi says, yayin lashon taniya v'yalala. The word yayin means crying and mourning and moaning. So I'm not sure how the word yayin means that, but Rashi is telling us that the word yayin means that. Tirish, what v'maikar tirish? I'm sorry, tirish shekol hamisgara boy. If you get too involved in highly alcoholic beverages, nasir rush, you're going to end up poor. Most addicts end up penniless. Rav Kahana Rami, Rav Kahana had a kasha. Ksiv tirish. The wording is it's spelled tirish without a vav. But the Korean tirish, we read it as if it had a vav. So it says tirosh, the Korean tirosh. Zacha, if you're zaycha to drink wine in the proper proportions, in the proper amounts, naserosh. And Rashi tells us something fascinating. Drinking a little bit is actually tremendously helpful for your creativity. It opens your mind up by, I guess, reducing your inhibitions. That allows you to think with a certain clarity and discover new things. That's very good for you. However, loy zacha, if you weren't zacha and you're abusing wine, nasa rosh, it's going to cause you to become penniless. Ravi Arastira, ksiv yismach or yishmach, b'karin and yismach. Now here once again, how do you know to read to say it's written with a shin? So here already I saw when the Masifta brought down that the word yismach has a dogish, has a little dot in the ches. And whenever there's a dot, you read it like a double mem. Yisma mach. So since you read it like double mem, it would mean yishmam. Yishmam is a lashon of shemema, of desolate. So ksiv yishmach with a shin, which would sound like it's desolate. Queen yismach, which is happiness. Zocha mesamcha. If you're zocha in how you drink wine, it'll make you happy. Loy zocha, if you're not zocha mishamim, it'll make you desolate. It'll destroy you. You'll lose everything. And this is what Rabbi said that chamer v'rechni pachrin, wine and good smelling aromas, pachrin, open my mind up, make me smart. So now we've explained how do you know that achila and shtia are asur and they're inuyim. Rechitza v'sicha minala the ikri inui. We have the pasuk that says inui, but how do you know that not taking a shower and not smearing? How do you know that constitutes an inui? This is a fascinating story that's going to extend to Ein Zayin Amud Aleph.
However, we said yesterday that this is now, the rest of them are all derabbanans. No? Like the Inui of Achila is the only...
I guess it's an Asmachta.
The Inui of Achila is the only one that will give you, what is it, courage?
Courage, yeah.
Courage. The other ones won't give you courage. It's just a Rabbanan saying...
I don't know if it's a Rabbanan or maybe it's a Deraisa, but it doesn't give you courage.
Uh-huh. All right, so now we just want to know and make sure that it's actually Inui.
Correct. So there was an interesting story. Daniel was dealing with a Peronios that was supposed to come on Klal Yisrael, and what happened is after, I believe it's Dayavish, Allah or Kairish, who allowed Klal Yisrael to rebuild the second base of Mikdash? Was it Kairish or was it Dayavish? It was one of those two kings.
It's Dayavish.
But I think Kairish came along and put a stop to the construction. And Daniel sat be'avelis over that. And he said, Lechem chamudos lo achalti. I didn't eat lechem chamudos. Uvasu v'yayin loy ba'elpi. Meat and wine didn't come to my mouth. V'soich lo sachti. So the Gemara gets diverted now. The reason why we're bringing down this pasuk is to teach us how do you know that sicha and rechitza are inuyim. But the Gemara is now going to get sidetracked by the other words in the pasuk, and then we'll get back to this. My lechem chamudas lo yachalti. What did Daniel mean when he said lechem chamudas lo yachalti? He didn't even eat bread that has crushed wheat kernels. There's a shaila, the Ritvaz Gar's warm bread he didn't eat. But he was saying he didn't eat this bread. When we know on the chashav ki'inui, Daniel listed off a whole bunch of things that he didn't eat, but it doesn't say anything about inui. In the pasuk, it says he did all these things, he didn't shmir, but where do you see that means inui? Because there's another pasuk. The Malach told me, Al tir Daniel, don't be worried, we got your back. Daniel did this for 21 days. He went through this inui. But the Malach told him already the first day, Asher Nasata El Libcha, Lahavin, you took it to your heart to understand Ula his anes. So here's the key word, here's the inui, Nishmu Dvarecha. Your words were already heard in Shemayim. You already accomplished. And I also came because of your words, and the Gemara is going to explain what this means. So you see that those things that Daniel engaged in were inui. And one of the things he engaged in was v'soich lo sachti, he didn't shmir. So at least you see that sicha, refraining from sicha, is an inui. So rechitza minalon. How do you know that rechitza, refraining from rechitza, is an inui? Amar v'zutra b'rab tovia amar kra. The pasuk says in Tehillim, Vatavai kamayim bekirba. It'll come like water into my inside. Ucheshemen batzmoiso. And like oil inside me. Maybe when we're talking about coming inside you, the water coming inside you, maybe it means you're drinking the water. So Gemara, no, dum shemen. Look at the second half of the pasuk that talks about shemen batzmoiso. How does shemen get into your bones? Ma shemen me'avroi, you smear it on from the outside. That's how it's applied. So the first thing that the pasuk is talking about would be applied the same way. Of ma me'avroi, meaning you're not drinking the water, you're showering, you're bathing in the water. So you're telling me that the shemen batzmoisav is the anchor of the pasuk, which indicates that it's something external, and that's how we know that the first half of the pasuk also means something external. I'm going to show you the Tana that says exactly the opposite. That says Vatave Kamayim Bekirbo is the anchor, and that teaches us what the meaning of Keshemen Batzmoisav is. Vatana Imka Kanasabah. How do you know that smearing is like drinking? Even though we don't have a proof la'alacha, but we do have a remes from a pasuk. So clearly this town is using mayim to teach shemen, and mayim clearly is referring to drinking water. So this cannot be a source of your learning that Sicha also includes bathing. Amar Abashi, I'll tell you how I know Sicha, how I know that Rechitza is an Inoi. Rechitza migufe dikra shemi alei. We know it from the pasuk itself. The Chsiv, what did Daniel say? V'soich loy sachti. That's an unusual expression. He could have said v'loy sachti. He said double ocean, v'soich loy sachti. So that means to tell you an extra thing that he didn't bathe either. So now we have a makar that bathing and smearing are both, or refraining from them are both Hinoi. At the end of the pasuk, Gavriel Amalach is talking, and Gavriel told Daniel, because of your tefillah, Anibasi b'dvarecha, meaning Nichnasti l'soicha pargud b'shvilcha. To accommodate you, I made my way back into the pargud, into the ministers' meeting, into the inner circle meeting. I got in there to help you out. So the Gemara wants to know, Gabriel saying, I got back into the inner circle. I was a backbencher, and I got back into the inner circle. Well, when did he become a backbencher? When was Gabriel Amalek thrown out of the inner circle? And now he's saying, because of your tefillah, I was able to get back into cabinet. So the Gemara goes into a long story that goes down Amud Aleph. Well, we'll get started. Now this is a Nevu in Yecheskel, which wasn't actually happening. It was just a vision that he was seeing. And there was a vision. Yezno ben Shafan was the leader of the group. He was standing in front of them. They were bringing Ketarius, a group of people were bringing Ketarius for Avodah Zarah. So in his Nevuah, he was seeing a vision of Klal Yisrael doing Avodah Zarah being led by Yezno ben Shafan. And then it says, Vayishlach tav nisyat. He saw this Mara, I don't know what it was, but suddenly a hand came out of this Mara. Like, I don't know if anyone ever saw the Addams Family, that hand that would pop out. Remember that hand that would pop out? So a hand just popped out of this. And it chapped me by my chup, or by my payas, and chapped me by my hair. And it carried me, and this is all a vision. This is not actually happening. This is more like him watching it in 3D, in a simulator. And it took me flying through the air between the heaven and earth. And it brought me to Yerushalayim. This is Yecheskel Navi sharing his vision. So I didn't actually go there. I was just in a 3D simulator watching it. And it dropped me off Al Pesach Shara Pnimis Aponya Tzvayna. It took me to the northern gate of the Beis Hamikdash. Asher Shom Moshev Semel Hakina Hamakne. There was sitting an Avodah Zarah by the Beis Hamikdash. It's a very painful Gemara to learn, and I'm going to stop in a place where at least there's some nice thing going on. V'yavei Yosy al chatzar beis Hashem apnimis. It carried me to the inner chotzer between the mizbeach and the heichal. V'nei pesach heichal Hashem ben ulam uben mizbeach. And who was there? Ke'esrim v'chamisha ish. There was around 25 people. Achareim el heichal Hashem lo yaleinu. Their backs were pointing towards the heichal, towards the west. Ufneim kedma, and they were looking towards the east. It's hard to read this. V'heima mishtachavim kedma l'shemesh, and they were bowing down in front of them to the east, towards the sun. Frek the Gemara mimashma shenemer ufneim kedma. If they know they were facing east, ein yedea shachareim al heichal Hashem. Could we not figure out on their own if their back was facing the heichal? Elamatam adloimer achareim al heichal. Why did the Navi speak out that their backs were facing the heichal? El heichal Hashem melamed shoyu purim atzman. They mooned the Beis Hamikdash, and they desecrated, they defecated right there towards the Beis Hamikdash. They were pointing that it was terrible to even contemplate. So Amar LaKadosh Baruch Hu Michal, the Rebbeinu told the Malach Michal, Sorcha U'Moscha, your nation really messed up here. Amar Lefanav, Michal said, don't look at the Rishayim. Rebbeinu Shalom Dayo L'Tovim Shebehen. Just look at the good members of Klal Yisrael, the tzaddikim who aren't doing Averis, and save Klal Yisrael from their Averis in the schus of the tzaddikim. And this is one little landing of good in this blot. So we'll stop right here on a high note that the Rebbeinu Shalom, the schus of the tzaddikim, should redeem us all from all of our difficulties, and we should only have bracha to schus all the tzaddikim. We could stop over here.
Yeah.